Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Growth Ethic Podcast. I'm Shane Chalupa here with co host Sam Lee.
We just got finished wrapping up our first episode. You'll find that we begin our episodes with a bit of a recap on the personal side of things, as well as our professional journeys in starting our own businesses. We also have a pre selected topic that we like to talk about on each episode. For this first episode, we focused on goal setting, very timely with the start of the new year. And then we ended off with a common pitfall that either Shane or myself or both have experienced as um, business owners. And yeah, I think there's a lot of value in learning from other people's experiences, and in this case, a pitfall. And the one that we talked about this episode is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and how that applies to reaching out to your network, especially if you're starting your own business, but also applicable even if you're working in corporate. So, yeah, we hope you enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy and welcome to the podcast.
What's up, Shane?
All right. Hey, Sam, how's it going?
It's going, man. What a week it's been. We've made it to Friday once again. My goodness, how was your week?
Good. Also, another busy week. We are focused primarily on the business side. We're in kind of still the launch takeoff phase and really focused on marketing and sales heavy. Started out the week feeling a little bit lost and overwhelmed. My background is definitely not in sales or marketing by any stretch. A little bit of exposure over the last 2 years in a previous role, but yeah, now it's all on me and my wife, Mary, where we're co-founders and partners in our business, Obnovit, and looking to really spool up our funnel, marketing leads and funnel, and then turn that into a sales pipeline and get some proposal requests for proposals come in, and then hopefully sign some deals here over the next 6 weeks is our target. We've got a little bit of workload in the background that's sustaining right now, but really looking at building that out and growing going forward. So it's been an awesome week, learning a lot. Finally, I feel like we reached clarity. My wife, Mary, her background is actually in sales for the last 10 plus years, but she's coming off of and out of being full time mom mode now with the two kids going to preschool. So she has a little bit of free time, and we're intermingling my tech side brain and her sales background. And we reached a lot of clarity this week around what our next steps are, setting targets and goals, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I think. And then yeah, on the personal side, it's been weather-wise here in Pennsylvania, Northeast Pennsylvania. It is cold, snowy. We're actually having our first winter in about 4 years. So, um, since yeah, actually my youngest daughter was born. So this has been an interesting time. Good time to spend a lot of time inside, focusing on the business. But man, getting a little stir crazy for sure. Could use some sunshine and warmth, maybe a little sand and some water.
Absolutely, man. Look, there was already a lot in there, right? Like you mentioned, how you and Mary are really leading the charge in so many different ways for your guys' business called Obnovit. Like we'll spend definitely a lot of time, not only today, but throughout future episodes to dig into what it is that Obnovit does. But just want to take a step back for the audience, just on more of the personal side. I thought, something interesting that you mentioned. You're more on the engineering, more on the tech side of things, whereas Mary is leading more of the marketing and the sales side. Um, I think it's so interesting to hear that, folks that are starting out in their journeys of, creating their own business, whether it's in service or coaching or e-commerce, everyone has a background, whether it was working in corporate or maybe it was another business that they had started in the past. So I'd love to kind of unpack that a little bit. What is kind of your background prior to Obnovit becoming a thing? Um, Two-part question: when did you and Mary start Obnovit, and what was it that you were doing prior to Obnovit becoming more than just an idea and an actual business?
Yeah, great question. So, my background is a mechanical engineer by education and experience. Pretty much at 15 years now of experience doing on the boots or boots on the ground, actual engineering. Out of school, I worked at various manufacturing facilities, chemical, energy, oil and gas, you name it. I've been around most manufacturing facilities, meaning these facilities are producing the things that are either raw products or go into the final products of things that we use every day. And over that career, I also spent some time in consulting, where really exercising a lot of engineering on the day to day, as well as various engineering management roles, managing other teams of engineers that were under my responsibility and achieve really setting out to achieve different goals and projects. Over time, I've learned and grown an affinity for sustainability, and also leveraging my technical problem solving and a little bit of the creativity infusion there, and realized that being in the consulting world and working with different manufacturing companies, I really wanted to go out on my own and be able to provide full cycle sustainability solutions. So folks have a need for different projects to upgrade their facilities, reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, and ultimately improve efficiency, lower operating costs. And that's where Obnovit was founded, is really a passion project in the sustainability space to provide the technical and the full cycle expertise to get those projects done in a profitable way so that they are leveraged and ultimately deployed out there and gain some momentum. We launched, my wife Mary and I launched the business a little over a year ago, and the initial launch was relatively slow. There was a lot of soul searching, kind of figuring out how can we go after this, and we knew that her experience in sales and marketing would be hugely beneficial. And then, really, a lot of the passion for moving sustainability forward and the technical problem solving nature of it is where I come in, and we joined those two together to form the business. So we're right now, I would say we soft launched a little over a year ago, and then September 1st of this year, we really had full launch and are now kind of completely out on our own. Whereas in the past, I was part time doing consulting work for another company and have slowly kind of weaned off of that, and we're now fully out on our own, navigating the waters of small business ownership. And really, the key first step in that is to have an idea and a passion, and then you got to fill up your funnel and your sales pipeline, and then start making money and figure out how to solve the downstream problems once they become problems or bottlenecks. So I think that hopefully answers both parts of your question.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of want to paint this picture to the audience of, you know, making that jump, even though you've been in this space for so long. Same with Mary. You guys are experts in your own trade, but making that jump, whether it's a soft or a hard launch, to then be out on your own, to be building your own pipeline, productizing your services, pricing, resourcing, even to the most basic things of coming up with a name and trademarking and creating a business entity. That all can sound so daunting. Um, and it is, like, it was daunting for me too. How on a personal level, right? Outside of just the kind of trials, tribulations, and even a lot of the wins throughout, really nurturing your business. How do you deal with, like, on a personal side, how do you deal with kind of the rigors of that? Like, is it, through, a lot of people rely on fitness, they rely on having a really structured day, some rely on religion. What is it that you do, and what do you fall back on to really handle kind of the fear and, the sometimes overwhelming nature of going out on your own?
Yeah, it's been a really long journey. And I think there are people out there probably who would say they just took the jump and it came easy and they figured it out as they went. But for me personally, and I think probably for a lot of others out there, it's been a really long journey. A few main points are one, dealing with the fear side of things. It really comes back to a lot of personal development work that I've done over the last 5 years, really. So after our first daughter was born, I was in a almost like a tech startup within a large Fortune 500 company, which it does not really work that well. As you could imagine, it's crazy, but there's also a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. So pretty what I would describe as toxic environment and not a great working environment, long hours. I was definitely not the best version of myself. And so during that experience, I started the self development journey, which has grown significantly over the last 4 years. And I would say, really, the big thing that I've gotten to over the last few months is just having a real appreciation and handle on self worth and then confidence, and understanding that what each of us has, whatever we're bringing to the world, whether an entrepreneur in a business or working with or for other folks and other companies, really bringing the best, most authentic version of yourself is really critical. And we've spent a ton of time doing that, and having young children really accentuates and brings that out. So that's really probably one of the biggest foundational elements. And then I would say beyond that, having the self discipline piece, which then ties into kind of the personal side of how do we run and deal with owning and operating a brand new startup business. And for me, it's built upon routine, discipline, with in intersection with fitness and health. My wife and I, am fortunate to have a partner who is also heavily invested in the spiritual health as well as our physical health, including exercise and diet. So we really, I would say, over the last few years have gone all in on that as far as healthy, clean eating, whole food based meals, and limited processed foods, sugars, oils, all that, which will, I'm sure someday in the future, we'll dig into that specific topic on multiple episodes. But yeah, the health piece is critical. Also, the gym for me, I'm a CrossFit person as well as forthcoming and upcoming endurance athletes. So have some goals set out there, but really getting into the gym at least an hour a day for each of us is critically important. And then with all of that, you kind of have to start getting really regimented about your schedule and planning your day, planning your life. And once you pull those pieces together, and then you realize that you're never going to have it perfect before you go and launch, you got to just take that first step. I think there's a pretty famous quote out there about the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And I would say it starts with one step and then it continues with every step thereafter. And sometimes there's maybe some side steps and even some steps backward. But if you keep pushing forward, then there's really no way up, or no way but up for you and to achieve your goals and vision.
Look, I'm a sucker for a good metaphor. And I think this week was like that captured my week so perfectly, where all it takes is one step. Like you just have to keep making those steps. And given the time of the year where people are setting goals, for me, not to get too much into the goals themselves, this week felt like an entire year's worth of me trying to achieve my goal in and of itself. And I kept making steps towards it. And then I ended up at a cross where like there was a huge stream in front of me and I could not make that next step. And it required me, and to keep this metaphor going as long as I can, I had to I had to not take one step, but really plant myself there for a little while and almost build a bridge to get over this stream. And what that meant for me this week was it's okay if I don't accomplish that project or deliver something. Take the time and understand that there's going to be multiple steps that I need to take that next step. And it was really hard for me to come to terms with that this week because my personality is if I see a goal in sight, I want to get there as fast as I can. And if I don't get it done within a week or 2 weeks, it stresses me the hell out. And so this week, I think you put it perfectly. Like sometimes you may take a step back. For me to this week, I couldn't make a step forward. I had to just stay put and I had to build this mini bridge so that I could take the next few steps come next week. Um, but yeah, that metaphor really just spoke to me. And the thing about identity, I think, is so important and so applicable to my journey as well, where there was an element of personal development for me as well, as I started my journey and starting up my own shop now just around 2 years ago. Um, but that personal development for me came after I started my own business. I didn't have the time to develop myself and find what my mantra was when when the going gets tough to fall back on. I kind of had to find it as I was going, um, and maybe part of the reason why was the reason one of the reasons that I started my own thing was that I had to. I was victim of the mass layoffs that a lot of people saw around 2 years ago and still kind of going, unfortunately. And, I made that decision. It was a thought that I had for a while, but I was kind of forced into making that decision a lot quicker. But during the process of starting my own shop and figuring things out, um, that element of personal development became so important. What are the things that are non-negotiables in my life, whether it's fitness, eating healthy, having structure. And in doing that, you really figure out who you are, which is such a cool process. And if you have, um, the benefit of having a wife or a husband or a partner along that journey, it becomes even more beautiful because it becomes a collaborative thing. Over the dinner table, you get to talk about so many things. I'm sure you and Mary have had so many conversations around just developing individually as as a unit, and there is such a blend between personal and professional, and I think that's what we're trying to really hit home in a lot of our episodes, today and onward, is that we are the business, and as people running the business, we have human thoughts and human needs, and we need to figure that out alongside running the X's and O's of a business.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe you could elaborate a little bit for the audience on your background in starting up your company because you're a little bit further ahead of me in that sense and historically, but it would be really great to understand kind of the brief flyby of your background. And I know you mentioned the layoffs in your particular space and field and everything. So it'd be great to understand a little bit more about that, and also maybe the process, a little bit of an overview on the process of once you started the company. What did that first little bit of personal development look, feel like, and that process there?
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, started my business um, in 2021. Sorry, 2022. My goodness, it's 2025 now. Getting my years mixed up already. But it was early 2022 that I started my business as an SEO consultant. Prior to that, I was in the space for about 11 years. But for the 3 years before starting my own shop, I was in fact managing a group of SEO consultants. And it was literally over dinner that my wife and I were just talking about, our goals for the upcoming year. And I had this aha moment of, if the time ever comes for me to start my own thing, I've done everything that I think I need to do to be able to start that business. So, from things like selling the deals to managing people to, of course, being knowledgeable enough to do the executional work, pricing, having the sales deck, like all the little bits and pieces to get something up and running. I realized that I had been doing it, and then this layoff happened, which I think is a blessing in disguise. Now that I look back at it, of course, it was hard at that time. Um, and when after that layoff happened, it was a quick pivot for me to say, "This is a sign. This is the sign." And it was so coincidental that prior to those layoffs happening, that my wife and I already had that discussion, and that time just came, and I was up and running within 2 weeks. I'd say those 2 weeks, I was grinding from like 5 AM to 10 PM. So it wasn't like 8-hour work days. I definitely was kind of burning the midnight oil, but was able to, get things up and running rather quickly and had my first deal within the first couple of months. Um, and I'd say, I was so busy and I was so motivated to get this thing up and running, for obvious reasons like paying the bills and whatnot. And I was so busy that I was reluctant to take care of myself. I'm generally a healthy guy, but during that span of like the first couple of months, I really let myself go in the sense that like I wasn't working out or eating healthy. All I was focused on was putting the time into getting things up and running. But I quickly realized that starting your own thing is really grueling in the sense that every hour counts. You're always thinking about it, you're always doing something. And if you're not doing anything for the business, you want to be the best husband in this case as possible. You want to be the best brother, son, friend. And so it forced me to do a lot of developing. And for me, I always rely on fitness. I always feel the best when I have a good rhythm going. Like I said, I was always, generally healthy. Um, and it was at that time that I picked up running again. Um, and I am one of those guys, the kind of culty runner type that once you're in it, you want to spread the knowledge as much as possible. I have two close friends of mine that are kind of my accountability partners, but it really started around that time, making sure that I was taking care of myself so that I physically and mentally could handle of the rigors of, owning and operating a business. So we'll get into a lot of other things like education and things that are much more applicable to the actual day to day of running a business. But in the beginnings, I realized that I was running myself into the ground at the expense of running this business. Um, and once I quickly realized that and brought running and working out back into my life, that had, a causal effect on my ability to run this business and be more alert and mentally sharp. Yeah, throughout the hours of, when I was running my business.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Thanks for sharing. And I would say you'll find a common theme with a lot of folks who are high performers, and it's certainly not true of all, but definitely a noticed pattern with people that I interact with, both on coaching groups and just daily interactions in my network. That fitness is a really key staple for a lot of folks, as well as spirituality, faith, whatever that may look like for everybody. Everybody has their own form and fashion, but having some real staples there is critical to ground you and bring you back into the reality of present day and what you're doing, and kind of also giving you a little context of life in perspective. And it took me a long time, especially being a more technical mind, from for a long time, as long as I can remember. It was really a get it done type person, come from a family of doers. both hands and knowledge based, but just doing and getting things done. Not a lot of reflection and spirituality mixed in there. So I would say all through grade school, high school, college, it was really heads down into the book. Just what's the next step? What's the next piece in the career? Making money, a family, just everything that everybody has as the quintessential American life, let's say. Uh, I quickly realized over the last 4 years, probably triggered by having kids. Sometimes people have different events, but I think really for me, having young kids, it really forced me to reflect on life and what it really means. And that really sparked and developed a fire within me to go out and do the things that would not be traditionally accepted, well, with my immediate family or even by societal norms nowadays for the bulk majority of people. But there is certainly a lot of power within everybody to do anything that they really want to put their mind to. But it definitely is a challenge and something that you have to work on. And for me, coming from a technical mindset with some creativity, but how do you fuse and blend that and get the self confidence to go out and really be the best version of yourself out there all day, every day. So it's a journey, and I'm excited to dive more into that and also follow along this journey as it goes because things are change, and we'll be able to recap things that we've done over the last over a decade since we crossed paths in college as roommates at one point. Even those of you listening will be interested to learn, and we'll get into some of those more specific details. I'm sure over time they'll come out, but yeah, really strong bond, and it's great to have it come back full circle now with two people who are totally different education background. Everything you can think of is totally different, but we found through our conversations here lately a lot of commonality and really felt moved by that to get it out to the audience and really help people out there.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect segue. And like Shane said, there's so much that we can dive in. I mean, I think about the first time that we reconnected, probably around 6 months ago now, and how, you know, as an engineer and a marketing person, like jumping on a call, it was so shocking how much similar kind of problems and challenges we were facing. And it was, it just made so much sense, right? You know, you're onto something good when we both thought in one of our meetings we joined and we're like, hey, what do you think if we did a podcast together? And we're like, I was just thinking the same thing. And it's not, purely to just share with one another, but given that we have such different backgrounds, and our current endeavors are very different in different verticals and different industries, it just goes to show that there are people out there that probably share, that definitely share a lot of the similarities, and ultimately would love to hear from everybody else as well through comments and through emails as well, on what they're dealing with. Because ultimately, we want to create a community. We want to share what's going on. There's so many things that we can learn from one another. And yeah, I think it's a perfect segue to kind of dig in a little bit on more of the professional side of things. I mean, you said a year into Obnovit, touched a little bit around your current focus around sales and marketing. If you could share a little bit about kind of the big priorities that are top of mind in the last couple of weeks, we'd love to unpack a little bit.
Yeah, I've it's been a lot of cycles. If I were to draw a picture of what it looks like, it would be a bunch of loop-de-loops for starting a business. And there's so many different aspects, some of which come naturally and some of which don't. And for me specifically, given my background and experience, the technical side and what we're doing and the solutions, that part of it, and getting in and doing the actual work, rolling up the sleeves and getting it done is natural. But there's so much stuff on the back end and like accounting and financials and marketing and sales, all of that other stuff that is really important. Definitely did not come natural. And even I would say forming what our offer is and what where, like, what is the origin of the company? And the unique piece that I would share, and I'll try and summarize it here in kind of a short snippet, and we'll go into more detail in the future. But I would say it's an infusion and an intersection of where my passion areas lie from pre career, like kind of post college or end of college, around that era, and then into my career and what I've seen throughout, and then really doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of journaling. So picked up daily journaling probably 2.5 years ago, and have just done a lot of reflection about what I'm passionate about, things that interest me, energize me. What can I do that will benefit society and people will see value in and ultimately pay for? And a lot of that soul searching went into forming Obnovit. And then I remember right as we were forming the company, and this was about a year and a half ago now, my wife and I were on a long road trip with our kids. We were talking, like, how do we come up with the name? And we had so many iterations. This was like a 12-hour road trip. So we had lots of time and ultimately landed on Obnovit, which is an comes from a little bit of my heritage and background in being Czech with my dad's father, my grandfather, and then a word that was meaningful and really Nova means to renew or refresh. And sustainability is a lot about renewing and refreshing and reusing and recycling, and that's really what we wanted to embody with the name. And the company represents the ethos of what we believe in personally, not only from a professional side of what we can do for our clients, but I think also for our household and each of us individually and in our marriage and connection. The word embodies everything that we strive to be in life. And so we're really here as Obnova to help people solve challenges and get back to sources of renewing what they've already got and making them better, refreshing those things. And so the core information and our why is where we wanted to start. A lot of people are going to know the Simon Sinek video, famous probably over a decade now ago, but about how you start with why. And the greatest companies and the greatest people and thought leaders in the world have always gravitated and started with why. So we made sure we started there. And through my journey, I've found that I fall back to that a lot because there's lots of different voices and thoughts and all this, and if you have that central place to come back to, it really helps provide some amount of clarity and guidance as you go through this process. And beyond that, I would say you can really, I'm fortunate to be part of a coaching group with one of the greatest um, business owners and builders and all of that out there. And his name's Dan Martell. But in that coaching program, I love it because he simplifies it all down to three things: the theory of constraints. You can trace it back to a book that's out there, and we'll get into that some other episode. But really, for a business, I think of it kind of as a triangle or three verticals that make the foundation of a business. And you got to have marketing, sales, and what's called delivery, which is whatever your service, your product, anything that you're getting to your customer. The whole production and delivery piece, that's under that part. But really, you want to start with marketing, sales, and delivery, and you really want to overflow or overwhelm that first part before you go to the next part. And then that next part, you're probably going to have a bottleneck there, and then you got to go fix that, and then you keep going through that cycle, and that's how you grow. But really, to boil it down for business, is three parts: marketing, sales, and delivery. And you want to go create a problem in those areas sequentially, and then fix the problems and then go back to the next one on the list, in a circular fashion. So right now for Mary and I at Upnova, we're focused on kind of that marketing and sales piece where we are looking to generate as many leads as we can right now, being really about, call it 4 months in full time with some holidays and delivery done in that time period. But now it's really about filling the funnel, filling the pipeline, converting those into projects and paid work. And then from there, Once we get overwhelmed with the delivery piece, we'll go fix that, which will look like hiring, and get into a whole playbook on hiring at some point. And the sequencing is important. But yeah, that's really where we're at today professionally. And I am actively out there, have targets and goals set up around the marketing and sales pieces. And we're by no means, it's not efficient. It's not sexy right now. It's ugly. It's brute force. It is calling people through my phone book that I have known and worked with, as well as just kind of figuring out that networking piece. And it's definitely not a sexy, well-oiled machine at this point, but we've got a keen eye towards that. And when you start, it's going to be messy, for sure. So that's really where we're at to kind of bring everybody up to speed and level for today's date. And I guess, Sam, for you, a little bit, again, as we talked about, a little bit ahead, and we now have kind of your impetus for starting the business, and then getting into the personal development journey that was interweaved with starting your business and the timing of all of that. But maybe you could just give us a quick overview and catch up of where you're at with your business, and maybe a little preview of where you're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do that, the marketing piece that you're in currently, I think there's so much that we can unpack there. I mean, we have myself who's done digital marketing for 11 years. So I think there's a lot of cool sessions that we can have in the near future, just to kind of workshop um, what a digital marketer would do to find these deals, right? It's not just about traditional search, which is kind of um, my forte, but the principle of digital marketing in the traditional search sense still applies, right? You want to be where your target audience is, and how do you mobilize your efforts to be visible amongst that group, thereby allowing you to build pipeline. So I think we have some interesting sessions upcoming that in the form of some sort of working session could be really interesting, not only for Shane, but you directly, but for also folks listening in that might be starting or already in their journey of becoming a business owner. So just wanted to put that out there. As far as myself, just to give the short intro around my business, it's called KeyRise Consulting. Um, I don't have a very good story around the name. All it was, and I'm so bad at coming up with names, I was looking at some of the top companies, the primary one being American Express. Like Amex was such a catchy name to me at that time, and it's a portmanteau. It's two words combined into one. And I literally spent hours just jotting down all words that are relevant to my industry. And so it's a combination of the word keyword and rising in the ranks. And combined those two made it Key Rise Consulting. Um,
I
but yeah,
love that. There's a lot in that. You kind of glossed over that and didn't give yourself enough credit, but that's I think a really foundational piece of your business. And it's great to understand that, and how it, again, for you, I think embodies what you're trying to do and summarizes it. You have a lot of clarity around that, which is important, for, I think, longevity and understanding what you're going to go out and offer to people, which is not always, that can be one of the harder aspects when launching a company, for sure.
definitely. Um, and I like to keep things simple. Like SEO is so Keyrise Consulting. I am an SEO consultant. Stands for search engine optimization. Traditionally, it was to rank organically in Google. Now, the role of an SEO, I would say, is much larger than that. It's more. Um, there's so many more ecosystems to be visible in, whether it's generative AI, um, wherever your target audience is searching for something. That's where an SEO consultant needs to understand that ecosystem and understand how to optimize your website and your brand to be visible there. Um, I think I said that I started my business in 22, but it's actually 23. I'm so bad at recollecting what year I started what. But in any case, at the time that I started, I know a large impetus was around the layoffs, but I did have the thought of becoming a consultant, starting my own thing for quite a while prior to that. Um, Similar to how you have your why, I think that's so incredibly important that everyone figures out their why. Whether you're in corporate, starting out in your own thing, whatever it is, you need to have your why. And my why isn't because I got laid off. That just doesn't make sense. I had to quickly figure out what the why was for my business, and the why really is when I was throughout my career. There were so many times that a family member or a friend or a former colleague would reach out to me and ask for, you know, some advisory work or wanted to chat about his or her business. And, I would chat with them, but I never had the time to be more actively involved. Um, and so a big why to my business is that I can have conversations with anyone and I have the time to be actively involved. Um, it's the ability to talk with so many people in so many different industries. And that's so exciting to me to be able to have a material effect and impact for so many different people and businesses. That is so exciting to me. And that's my why. That's what gets me up in the morning. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I'm so grateful to be able to say that I am fully booked. But even now, when someone reaches out and says, "Hey, like, do you have the time for a chat?" It's an absolute yes for me. It might, because I'm fully booked, it won't lead to a deal right now, and that doesn't matter for me. I can refer them to someone that I trust. But that initial conversation is my why. Like I love just hearing about where a company or a one person shop is at in their journey in digital marketing to be able to give my 2 cents and my honest and transparent advice on what I think they should be doing when it comes to search engine optimization. Um, so yeah, like I said, I am fully booked, which is so insane to me. And I'd say right now, my current focus for my business is to make sure that obviously my clients are happy, but that I am almost educating myself as if I'm just beginning in this space with that type of enthusiasm and energy because this space is changing at a pace that I've never seen before with the advent of AI. And there's so many implications. AI, in the sense that we can speed up the time in which we deliver things, but also in the sense that there are now there's real competition to Google search. There are people doing searches on ChatGPT, on Claude,
Mhm.
and so many other players now that I need to get a better sense of how I can strategize for my clients to be able to be more visible in these different search ecosystems. And so a lot of my time right now outside of, my billable hours is spent on getting to know these ecosystems, test out these ecosystems and see if it's relevant to the different industries that my clients are in and test appropriately so that I am not just creating strategy based on best practices and content that's easily readable for the masses, but I have actual first party data to support when and why we should pursue X, Y, and Z strategy. So I'd say that's kind of my core focus right now for the clients that I have in my portfolio.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I know that going forward here, AI is going to become a real part of our conversations because it's impacting every single person, industry, and really turning over something that has been in place for 30 years now. Like, let's say the search engine in the 90s, right? Probably a little bit before that, but ultimately out to the masses starting in the 90s. And where we're at now in 2025 with it becoming commonplace for people to be hearing using AI and just starting to scratch the surface. But the future of what that looks like and how it impacts every person is something that has got to be on everybody's radar if it's not already, because anything you can imagine can be you can benefit by utilizing AI in some form or another. And it doesn't have to be super complex, coded, all of this stuff. It can be as simple as searching for a restaurant around your local area or planning a little trip, and an itinerary for a short trip, long trip, any of that. And it's only going to gain more momentum, popularity, and ultimately find its way into way more use cases. So it's very exciting. I look forward to touching on that periodically, and maybe some deep dives even into how it's impacting each of our respective industries and where we are at today and where we're going to be going in the future with it.
Absolutely. And there's going to be some fun crossover here, guys. Like we're going to do some SEO sessions for Shane's business. Um, I also have a couple of clients who are in the semiconductor industry, so I'm definitely going to pull some of his brain power to kind of speed up my learning curve around what goes into some of the products and services that would make a certain semiconductor product provider or a membership provider more appealing to the target audience that Shane is much more familiar with than I am. So there's going to be some cool crossovers here that we can definitely play into. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'm very excited to dive into that. And I think we've had a lot of great discussions around that intersection. And I think there's kind of three main pieces. There's each of our personal pieces, there's each of our professional pieces, and then there's, I guess it's more of a matrix of how those all interlace and intertwine. And it's a really neat story to be able to go through updates that we have from each week, on the business front, the personal front, and see how all of those things can really resonate with one another, and ultimately provide energy, frequency, and ideas to help others, both you and I directly, but also others who are going to tune in to listen to what we were talking about.
Absolutely. And if you didn't get the sense already, this is a very conversational podcast. We don't do much planning beforehand. Um, it's even tough for us to separate if this is a podcast or a vlog. It's more of a follow along journey, but we'll definitely plan for some things to be more structured so that we're able to articulate very clearly some of the things that we think are very, very important. And in all of these episodes, we'll certainly have a topic to at least talk about. And I think one of the topics that we wanted to kick off in probably a very timely manner now with the start of the new year is goal setting. Um, and, I can kind of kick this one off. And it's coming from a personal place. I alluded to it earlier in our conversation today that I had a really tough time this week. The beginning of the new year was great. My wife and I, we kind of reverse engineered our goals, whether it was financial goals, client goals, spiritual goals. Um, and then this week, like I said, I was making good strides with my clients. Um, as a quick aside, where we're closing on a condo, we had this podcast that we wanted to stand up ASAP. And I won't single out one thing that gave me so much trouble, but there were just moments throughout this week where, um, especially at the face of us setting our goals for the year, there were moments that I couldn't make an additional step towards that goal. And it was so disheartening for me. Um, and, it took me probably a little too long to realize that it's okay that during the course of the year or the month or the week, you might not be able to make as big a stride as you would hope to make to attain whatever your goals are for that upcoming year. And it's okay to feel not necessarily stuck, um, but just realizing that, hey, right now, what needs to get done for you to attain your 6 or 12 month goal is for you to take a quick pause and understand that you have to make more mini steps to make that big step that you were trying to make. Um, and I think that was a big learning for me this week around just not, I guess, not necessarily goal setting, but expectation setting to achieve what my goals are for this upcoming year. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to share that. I guess my learning there is really just being okay that you're not going to build Rome overnight, right? Like that saying that that everyone's familiar with. Like it takes time, and I didn't really I just mentioned it now, but outside of just my consulting business, we have this podcast that we're standing up. My wife and I are thinking about trying for a kid. We're closing on a condo. These are a lot of things that I'm sure our audience can relate to. There's so many other things going on with life that pulls you, that demands your time, and you've probably set goals for those different things that you're trying to make progress in, and you're going to have those weeks, whether it's now or in June or in December. But I think me taking a step back this week, even texting with you, Shane, just talking about what we're going to talk about today gave me a moment to reflect on why it was so troubling for me. And it allowed me to take a step back and recognize that I'm not taking a step back. All I'm doing is just acknowledging the fact that not every week is going to be this massive stride towards attaining whatever goal that I had set for the year.
Oh man, so powerful there because I would even go as far as say for me in this initial stage of company build out and launch that almost every day and even subsets portions of a day it's a whirlwind of emotions, it's a roller coaster sine wave to get a little nerdy. I mean, and so to have that emotional feeling, those the roller coaster of sometimes you're in flow state, you're in your power state, your high frequency, and all of a sudden you can get on one call or one text or something can get thrown at you, and really it becomes critically important to build up the muscle of being able to reframe and reset and keep moving forward and know that when you're having those challenges, that's when you're building that muscle and you're doing the hard work, you're doing the hard thing, and you got to get through it because on the other side of that is the win. And to your point, it's not always going to be some massive win. There are going to be, if you keep doing the little steps, they say, 1% better each day, one more rep, one more time, whatever it is each day that you do a little bit better than you did the day before, it doesn't feel like big wins, but when you look back on things, you're gonna see over 6 months, 12-month period that those gains are exponential and that you are gonna have those bigger win days and weeks. But at the same time, there's probably gonna be a lot more days and weeks and hours where you're struggling and it's a grind and it's hard. And that's just part of the process. And I think it's really neat for you to share that part because it also resonates with me because I'm having the same emotions and feelings on a daily and weekly basis. There's for context with us, it's going out on our own completely. That means for those of you who aren't familiar with like freelancing or owning your own business, that means no benefits, no retirement, there is no net, there's no fallback. And it's daunting to go through that. But as I think really going back to the core of why you're doing it, having a regimented disciplined way of approaching life, including the kind of the pillar pieces with spirituality and fitness and all of these things throughout your day to have a schedule and stay in somewhat of a routine and be disciplined. That's what helps you keep going and get through those hard times. Because a lot of folks, it's easy, and I've been there myself, where you start something, it's challenging, you fall off, and then you have to reset. And really, it's about how far do you fall off, and do you completely walk away and fold up the tent? Because I could tell you 10 times this week where I've just thought about, hey, I'm gonna pack it in, call it, and like let's just go get a W-2 job at being an engineer again, right? Like that's the easy route. But when you're chasing your passion and you have built this confidence, there is a power in that that helps bring you through it. But it's those people who are out there saying that this is easy or that there's no hard days, there's no hard moments, I can say from experience, that is not authentic. And for us here, we're really trying to bring it out with authenticity and be real about what we're doing, provide our perspective on what's going on in the world around us and what we're experiencing emotionally, both professionally and personally, and then also having some of these really key elements for small business startup owners or even larger company people who are in larger companies who could resonate with this, of how to technically do some of this stuff and how we've done it and really document that and get it out there in this uh, yeah, this morph between a podcast and a vlog. And really it's just, hey, this is our life, this is what we're doing, we're showing our work, we're showing our emotions to just be real. And the only piece I would say with goal setting is I was horrible at this. I'll go into a piece here now just to give some framework, but I would say my life in being an engineer was and being a W-2 engineer working full time for a company a lot. We would go through a lot of this goal setting stuff. Some companies are better at it than others, but really there's usually a planning process for the business, especially mature Fortune 500 companies. Like it's there, but and you go through it and you kind of do it, but you don't understand like or think to apply that to your life. And really, a lot of it is about what you're going to get out of life is the amount of effort and attention and detail you put into designing it. Just as if you were to design something else, if you were going to go hire an architect to design your dream home, you're going to invest time, effort, and energy, and they're going to guide you through that process. But you have to invest that time and energy in order to get the outcome that you want. And so, really, my big thing is about kind of designing and engineering the life that you want. And that all starts with the two parts to me really are, and I did not do a good job at doing this on a recurring basis year over year. And it was not something that became a habit until just recently in the past few years. But now it the goal setting process to me is really two big pieces. One is the vision, the high level up in the clouds, pretending that you're 10 years old again and somebody says, "Hey, you just won the lottery for $1 billion," or I don't even know what the latest biggest lottery was. But let's just say a billion, right? Tomorrow you get a check for $1 billion. What are you going to do next? And you have to dream and think big at these vision dream levels really high. And I did a lot of that for a while, and then I was like, yeah, you just keep doing that, it'll manifest. And there was a piece there, the second piece that's really powerful that I missed is you have to dream big and then be able to set a 12-month goal, yearly planning cycle, and then go into detail about goals that you have in the next 12 months that are going to align to kind of get you to those visions and do that. And it has to be those two parts together. If you miss one of those pieces, you're either going to not have the vision and direction, so your goals will be kind of stagnant and the same year over year, very small incremental gains. And then if you're just up in the clouds, you're never going to get any traction and make any progress at an accelerated fashion. These two pieces combined are really going to accelerate the exponential growth in your life. And so I would say at a high level, the process that I like to follow is set up big dreams for your life and kind of the main core areas. I have seven main areas that are focused around personal, my marriage or relationship with your partner, having children. That's another big pillar for me. Then I have family and friends. I go into charity, and then I have business and what I call auxiliary or material things, which is where the Ferrari and the GTR and all the fun, cool stuff live. But really, a lot of the other pillars are the reasoning around where I want to design my life, go make really big dreams 25 plus years out. You pretend you won the lottery. Like, what does that look like? Things that you would never even envision. Sitting down, having Elon Musk on your podcast, or you're on a yacht with Jeff Bezos, or whatever the case might be, something that's completely wild. Go to that magnitude. Allow yourself the freedom to do that. And then once you've done that, come back down and let's set a few goals in each of the 7 pillar areas. Again, it doesn't have to be those 7. You can make your own pillar areas, the pieces of life, but set, 1 to 3 goals in those areas and map it out for 12 months. And then you can break those down a little bit further. It's got to be everybody talks about SMART goals. It definitely has to be SMART, something that you can is specific and measurable. And then you need to really go in and start thinking about, what resources do I need to make that happen? What routine and regiment do I have to put in place every single day, that if I do these things, reaching that goal is inevitable. So break it down into daily routine, resources that you're going to need, because you're going to need other people, you're going to need software, you're going to need hardware, you're going to need all kinds of stuff to get you there. And then after that, let's go in and talk about milestones. So you got to have probably, quarterly milestones is a big one, but you can set up however many you want, 2 to 4. Tie a reward to those milestones. So X amount by this date, or this specific thing by this date. What are you going to reward yourself with? And then also you got to have a risk piece. If you don't hit it, you know, that vacation down to the Caribbean in May, and you don't hit your revenue goal for your business, guess what? We're not going. So you got to put both a positive and a negative response to what could happen, or a risk to what could happen on those milestones. And then really it's about following through every single day, revisiting those goals multiple times a day. A lot of people, if you are doing the goal planning process, it's a lot of times a file folder goal, goal planning. It goes into the into the ether, whether digitally or in physical format. It goes into the folder, and you might revisit it next December or November when you're starting to think about your next year. But really, it's something that you want to be looking at 3+ times a day. Both having, you can do a vision wall to create the visual aspect, but then also going through these goals every single day. And that those pieces are important, because that's how you're going to achieve it. It's not about writing something down and just manifesting on it, or leaving it in there and having it just written down. You got to really revisit it and focus your brain in on that. And there's so many things that we can unpack over time that's going to unlock, but that's really going to be the recipe for a successful goal planning session. It's very detailed. You need to invest a lot of time, to be frank, and energy into developing that. And once you build it the first time, it will get easier as you build it out in the future. But that's definitely a piece that is critical, and that I am just really realizing and getting into and adopting full scale, because it's new and has been presented to me in a way that makes a lot of sense. And I'm also seeing the direct results of following this methodology. So for those of you out there, if you're interested in what that template looks like, if you're interested in the instructions around that, feel free to reach out, because I'm happy to share that template with you. We I call it the results roadmap process. Others have different names. It's a morph, and things that have been given to me that I've adopted for my own. So happy to share that and pass it along.
Yeah, you know what? That's something that I'd love to take a look at too, because I think a lot of people shy away from putting things down on paper or typing it out, and like you said, revisiting it more frequently than most people probably do. Because I think there is a lot of power in seeing your goals like written down and revisiting it, but also having, like, for me, I voice my goals a lot with my wife. Like every day there's something that happens that begs the question, why? Like, why are we going to do this? And that all just trickles down to, is it part of our goals? Like, is it going to help us achieve this thing that we wanted to do in the next year? Or does it have any implications on our larger goals, our 5, 10-year goals? So I think in a way, there's probably elements in everyone's life where we are always kind of talking about goals. But it makes it a lot more achievable when you see it down on paper, or on your computer, or wherever you want to do it, on a board. Um, yeah, because I think that speaks to me a lot. When I think about goal setting, it's a lot of like this constant voicing of what our goals are, what my goal is, and that helps me keep myself accountable. And I'd say another thing I think that's hugely important, and part of um, one of our whys in this podcast also, is having that accountability partner. Um, Whether it's someone else starting their own business, or someone that has already been doing it for decades or a few years, or it could be a spouse or a close friend of yours. Having an accountability partner, or partners, if you have, if you're blessed with a large friend group, or what have you, I think that goes a long way. Because again, it all comes down to how frequently are you revisiting your goals, and are you making those necessary steps to getting to that place.
Yeah, for sure. Just getting it out there, not only just typing it out or writing it down in on paper format, a journal, having your vision wall, all of that. I mean, the more physical you can make that, printing things out, posting them on your wall, as well as both on social media, which I know another whole subject we'll get into that I'm really trying to ramp up for a number of reasons, not for the traditional reasons, but the point there is getting it out in front of people who you respect and can hold you accountable, and that it's scary to tell them. It might be your parents, your spouse, yourself is a big one, right? But your friend group, other peers, just everybody. The more that you get it out there, it's truly one of those things where the frequencies and the visions and everything that you want to put out there, which, just as a quick aside, everything in the universe is made of energy and matter. Okay, there's two components to that. And so, even us as persons, thoughts, those, it's all energy and it's all frequencies. And so, the more that you focus your mind on that and those frequencies and the energy you're creating to put out into the universe, it will reverberate and bring that back to you in equal amounts. So, it's really the process of training the mind, both conscious and subconscious, to have those frequencies and get that stuff out there into the universe. And then it is the weirdest thing, but once you start buying in, it is like magnetism, man. Things just start falling in your lap that you never thought would ever happen. And, I would attest that our relationship and this podcast and everything that has come out has been a direct result of that in one way or another, and serendipitously coming together at this point in time, and now being able to combine our frequencies and energies and really bring that out in a very powerful way for others and for ourselves. And then on the accountability side, I would say, yeah, having coaches, mentors, mastermind groups, like, it's very hard to do it on your own. There are some people who do it on their own, but for longevity's sake and for the maximum, what I would say, fulfillment and happiness, you're going to want to go at it with a group. And I think there's another kind of famous saying out there. It's like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a group, go with a team. And so there's two pieces there, and definitely having that group and having accountability, like even we have on this podcast, is really moving and energizing. So encourage everybody to get out there and put yourself out there. Be comfortable enough. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, to be honest, and put yourself out there. Reach out to people, ask for either help or accountability, whatever the case is. You'll be surprised at how many people are willing to help and be that rock for you and that accountability partner, for sure.
Amen, brother. I think that's a great way to slowly close our first episode. I do want to leave with one thing, which we'll try to do on all these episodes, which are pitfalls, right? Um, maybe we were too honest about how tough it is to start our business. But there's going to be rainbows and butterflies too during our episodes. We'll share a lot of our exciting wins. Shane and Mary recently got their first client under the Obnovid umbrella. That's a huge win. So there's a lot of great things, right? Well, we'll talk about all the benefits of going out on your own as well. But we thought, the part of our episodes, if we end off with, some of the pitfalls and how we navigated those pitfalls, would be, really authentic piece of content that is truly relatable. So I'll take a crack at a pitfall. I think my mind, maybe because this is our first episode and really makes me reflect around the beginnings of Key Rise Consulting. One of the main pitfalls that I experienced, self-induced, was kind of like what you said, trying to figure out everything on my own. I had to put my ego aside very quickly. And it wasn't necessarily bringing on people to do some of the things that a new business requires. It was more putting the ego aside in the sense that even if and even if this person had no direct impact on my business, they weren't a potential client, they weren't their own business owner yet. It never made sense for me to reach out to this person or that person. I put that thought and understanding aside, and I literally went through my entire LinkedIn network of like 500 plus people in a spreadsheet, and one by one, either I messaged them on LinkedIn just to say hi, what's up, to put again like that energy out there of saying, what are you doing? Like, what have you been working on? Oh, by the way, I'm starting my own thing. And there was no strings attached. It was just a way for me to get comfortable with talking about what I'm doing outside of the confines of just my office space and figuring out how to do all this stuff. I put the act of starting my business aside and reached out to everyone that I could have reached out to and just talked about life, what's going on. And that physical act of putting myself in an uncomfortable situation, I think, was a huge skill that I developed very, very quickly. So the pitfall here is don't stay in a zone that gives you comfort, especially when you're starting out on your own. Don't overthink the question of, why do I need to talk to this person? And I'm not promising that by having a conversation, it'll lead to $100,000 deal. That's not the goal and the objective. The objective is for you to get, like you said, comfortable with something that might be uncomfortable for you. And I will say, opening up your network is actually a really, really great thing for you to do if you're thinking about starting your own business. Again, it doesn't have to be someone that's directly, you know, it might not be a target audience that you're going after. It might not even make sense, at the onset to reach out to this person, but just do it. Have a conversation. Have a 15-minute sit down. Buy them a cup of coffee or do it over Zoom. Just doing something that is outside of your normal kind of tendency builds a muscle that you need to start building. So that's the pitfall that I'd like to share, and what I think a lot of people would benefit from kind of avoiding, well, tackling that pitfall head on.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I can't stress and echo that loud enough because the piece about a business is, again, it's going to start and the success will be determined by marketing and sales. How fast can you fill your funnel, convert that into a sales pipeline, and then convert that into deals and revenue? And the only way that you're going to do that is either you've got somebody on your team, a partner, or whoever's starting it up with you, or you got to go do it yourself. Chances are nobody is going to sell what you do or what you make better than yourself. So you got to get comfortable going out and having those conversations, and that's a great way to build momentum. And that's a part of the coaching program that I'm in, is actually making sure that you're doing at least 5 cold outbounds per day. That can be phone call, that can be text, LinkedIn message, whatever method you have that may or may not be effective. You just got to start getting the reps in, and a lot of it is about just persistence, getting the reps, building the muscles, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and making sure you're measuring as you go and using data to inform your decisions as you go through it. So 100% echo that one. I love that one. I think it's a great one on this initial podcast for those people who are in that initial stage or thinking about going to launch or do something in there. Even if you are in a company looking to go to another piece of the business or expand and grow, internally up the ladder, whatever it may be, you need to start getting comfortable tapping your network and leveraging your network in layers. You have your first immediate layer, the people who you have regularly interacted with or have a good relationship with. But then there's also a second and a third layer of people who know those people. And pretty soon that network of, what might be a few hundred people directly on your first level can turn into a few thousand people just by first or second connection of your first layer. So you got to go out there and get the reps in. And yeah, and to your other point about the challenges, there's just as much reward with it, because when you do have that first sale, you get that first amount in, and you deliver your first project successfully all on your own. You figured it out, you did it, the client is happy. There's going to be no better reward than that. And really, as you build and stack those wins, you'll gain momentum and it will become more fluid. Your problems are going to get bigger, but you're going to be able to have the time and wherewithal. And I'm going to make sure on the podcast that we're not getting into this 60-plus hour entrepreneur thing, because I'm not guaranteeing that you won't have to work long hours, but I have seen both sides of it, and there is definitely a way to do it responsibly and within a normal work-life balance that is both successful and allows you to manage that work-life balance. That's a non-negotiable. Yeah,
So,
and with that, I think we'll bid everybody adieu and see you all on the next episode.
yep. Good chatting with you, Shane. And yeah, excited to film some more episodes.
Awesome. Sounds great.
See ya.
Peace.